Michael Berryman on the Fish Bowl. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good
Well,
morning.
afternoon
Good
where you are.
afternoon. Great to have you on the show. I'm very happy to have you come swim in the bowl with me. I'm a huge fan of your work. I've been following your career for a long time. We
Yeah,
actually
I'm old.
we actually met at Pittsburgh's Horror Realm convention
Oh yeah.
a few years back, and it was
Yes,
just
sir.
an amazing experience getting to meet you and talk to you. And just you're such a nice guy in person, despite the crazy and wacky characters you portray in your films. And it's just I'm very happy to finally get you on the show.
It's nice to be in the bowl. They changed the water recently, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Every interview we change the water.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay.
Awesome. Well, I have quite a list of questions to ask you. I
All
don't
right.
think we're going to be able to get to all of them in one interview, but we'll try.
Let's give it a
Um,
shot.
you're right. I usually like to start out my interviews with asking my guests what sort of got you interested in film.
Okay. Well, actually, the movie theater, like in the movie Matinee, the Joe Dante film with um, John Goodman. That was how I grew up. I grew up in Santa Monica, California. We had the Aero Theater just a couple blocks down the road. It was a marquee theater. My sister and I would go see a movie quite often, usually on Saturday afternoon, catch two of them. The ones that struck my fancy the most were, well, let's see, The Magnificent Seven, of course, was really awesome. But the movies that struck my fancy were mostly sci-fi, basically always sci-fi. And then when television started, of course, there was Twilight Zone. So I guess as a kid, I really appreciated good storytelling. And it was just a delight. What an experience to have a shared moment on screen with where everybody, we have a couple hundred people in the audience, all emotionally synapsing at the same moment for the same reasons. It became a very visceral extension of, I don't know, I'd say like all of that networking and the brains and the humanity shared and people um, laughing and crying at the same moment, mostly for the same reason. I remember seeing a Charles Adams cartoon in the book. We had the four books, and there was one where Fester is eating popcorn, and he's like all sinister and smiling. Everybody else is horrified. So there is a rare exception on occasion, but that's how I appreciated films very much. Dr. Zhivago was incredible. All of that kind of stuff. Then I grew up. I grew up. Yeah, right. I went to college. I studied art history, and I was going to Homestead in Alaska, and I also studied some veterinary science and uh, um, um, natural science. So I appreciated this earth, so to speak. I had friends that were scientists and what have you. So basically, I was going to go live in the woods. And during the time that I was trying to save up money for it, I I met George Powell when I was in Venice Beach. I left college. Didn't quite have my degree yet, and still planning on going to Alaska. And I met George Powell, and he said, "You have an interesting face." And I said, "Well, thanks so much. I've only been dealt with that my whole life. What else do you have to say?" And he handed me a business card and said, "Warner Brothers." He said, "I'm doing Doc Savage, and I think you could play the coroner." And I knew the books, and then I realized who he was, and I said, "Do you know who you are? You produced The War of the Worlds, Time Machine, Journey to the Center of the Earth, etc." And he just patted my hand. He said, "Just call my office. Let's have a meeting." And I worked 2 days with Ron Ely on Doc Savage, and I got to get my Screen Actors Guild card, and I thought that would be my career. And then when I got another phone call a year or so later to do Cuckoo's Nest, I met Michael Douglas, Milos Forman, and everybody, and Jack, and I said, wow, okay, this is really something I could sink my teeth into. And I worked 127 days, and I learned a lot, asked a ton of questions. And we had the best people in the business. And I realized that, this might be something I could turn into a career. And then I was hooked, especially after seeing the final product. And Hills Have Eyes was the next project. So from then on, it was let's keep doing this, because all the other types of work I'd done, everything from a butcher to a taxi driver, and you name it, I figured this has potential to, um, you know, help me get through my future years, and it has. So thank you, George.
Awesome. Yes, thank you, George. um, that you kind of answered a few of my questions that I have on the list. One was kind of about Cuckoo's Nest, and the next one was actually about The Hills Have Eyes.
Yes,
But since The Hills Have Eyes is probably one of your most popular films, let's just start off right off the bat talking about The Hills Have Eyes Part 1 and 2.
yes, sir.
Getting to work with Wes Craven at his early stages before he probably on the film that well, definitely one of the films that made him most recognizable as the name Wes Craven with The Hills Have Eyes. First, he had Last House on the Left. Then The
Yes,
Hills Have Eyes was pretty much like his claim to fame that allowed him to
yes,
do Nightmare on Elm Street and Shocker and Surfing in the Rainbow and just everything else that he did throughout his impressive career. And there were two major writer directors that inspired me with my own work because I just actually graduated here at Point Park for screenwriting, and I love to write horror sci-fi the most. And John
right,
Carpenter and Wes Craven had pretty much the most impact on my imagination because my dad would let me watch horror movies, way before I was should be allowed to. My
that kind of
first,
fun child.
right, right. My first R-rated movie was Total Recall at age 5, and I've had a Schwarzenegger obsession since. And horror movies were next, and my dad just like introduced me to all the essentials of the 70s, 80s, and then being a 90s kid because I was born in 88.
Wow.
I just grew up at the kind of tail end of like Freddy, Jason, Myers,
Sure,
Leatherface, and all that, but
sure.
still able to enjoy all the stuff in its prime moment still. And I was wondering if you had any personal experiences dealing with Wes on either The Hills Have Eyes Part 1 or Part 2.
Absolutely. I first had a meeting. My agent called me and said, go to this meeting. It was Barry Kahn, Peter Locke, and Wes Craven. And I noticed that Wes was, he had a beautiful smile. He was calm. He had these big, inquisitive, childlike eyes. Very smart. He was a professor. I, um, I said, why? I got cuckoo's nest because I looked like I'd had a lobotomy because of my skull surgery. But in The Hills Have Eyes, they said, oh, well, could you play this nuclear test survival family that eked out an existence and misbehave and they're in the desert? And I go, yeah, sure. This is a matter of fact. So my look got me the job. And of course, we had a lovely conversation with them all. And I said, well, number one, you're going to film in the desert. I'm familiar with that area where we did film. I lived in that particular desert and also up in Big Bear, which is the mountains near them. Um, I said, it's um, ironically, my father was a Navy surgeon and was at Nagasaki and Hiroshima after they dropped the bombs, and he came home irradiated, and that's why I have birth defects. And my DNA is actually altered because I know this for a fact. When I went to go to Ancestry .com, I did like 5 saliva tests, and they could not get proper results. So I had one of my siblings do it, and now you know, I know it from Eastern and Northern Europe and Scandinavia, but so that all kind of fit. And when we got out to the set, we didn't have a lot of much of a budget. Um, we we had like one mini Winnebago, which was everything: wardrobe, hanging out, makeup, production office, all of that. We just had a 40th reunion last over the weekend at the Burbank Marriott, and it was wonderful to see everybody there. And we all told some really great stories. I remember Wes explaining about the McLean family and how the story came about through his writing and that particular historical event. And um, I realized right away he's a pretty sharp guy, and we actually played it. So we had the parallel worlds between the white bread family that we called them, and also the Hills family. So the message, of course, is that any group or anyone, in if the circumstances are right, you can be a civilized person and then also act very uncivilized, or if you have to survive. So it was a social commentary, anthropologically, socially, in many, many, many ways. So I started to realize this was not a splatter movie. This was just not a gore fest like a lot of the films are today. That people are trying to make their mark, and if they shock enough people, then they can maybe get funded to do something else, and down the line do something that has some maybe redeeming quality or more substance, more layers. So Reds had all those layers right away. I would say. Um, Let me see. Well, he had that wicked sense of humor. After we did the film, for instance, we didn't have an argument one day there, when Pluto has the binoculars and he is going to orchestrate the attack with the walkie-talkie and everything, and he gets ready to go into action. West goes, "No, in this scene, take your knife and just go, whoosh, whoosh, just scrape it real quick for tension, to build on this rock, and then off you go." And I go, "No, Pluto is cunning. Pluto's knife would be razor sharp at all times, and actually doing that would dull it." So he said, "No, no, no, but I need. This is what I need." And I said, "Well, um, let's do it in a different way." But most of the time, I would go along with them. Like, for instance, Susan Lanier was telling about the story how when I'm attacking, supposedly raping Brenda, um, that was one of the first scenes we shot, one of the first nights, and I go, she and I came up with an idea, and they said, well, when they go to pull the curtain back, let's actually be making out. And so we did, and it broke the ice. Everybody laughed, and we went, okay, well, let's do it again. And so it kind of it helped. Everybody kind of went along with it. I remember at a drive-in theater in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, in a van with my producers and Wes, and we were showing The Hills Have Eyes. So we thought it would be really funny if I dressed up like Pluto, like a fool. I said, "Yeah, it's a great idea." And during the middle of the attack in the trailer, people are horrified and terrified. And so I'm running around banging on car windows and thinking, "Oh, this is kind of funny." Until this big guy with a baseball bat got out, started chasing me and informing me that I had scared his girlfriend. Luckily, I'd been a long distance runner in college and high school, so I could stay ahead of getting pummeled to death. And while I'm screaming and looking for where the van was, I'm kind of disoriented, and then I see headlights, and the van pulls up, and there's Wes Craven, and he's just laughing, but also concerned, and he reaches his hand out, and he goes, "Jump!" So I'm literally jumping into the van as the guy is running close, and I'm like, reminds me of a Homer Simpson episode. But we wound up at a diner, and we're all kind of laughing and scratching our heads and going, I think we have a hit on our hands, But I like the balance of his storytelling. He did show us the last house on the left, which is just a little too brutal for me. I mean, there's enough of that in real life, and I've been involved. I get the story and the idea of reprisal, but I've actually had firsthand experience being involved in helping place women and children in safe homes across the northern hemisphere. I have friends, a lot of friends in law enforcement, and that's kind of one of my, it's not a hobby, but when the situation avails itself, I make sure to do whatever I can. The Wes Craven that I knew was had a great sense of humor, a really kind gentleman, and um, we went on to work in three other projects: Hills Two, Invitation to Hell, Susan Lucci, and that was a movie of the week. And then of course we did Deadly Blessings, which was wonderful. Those I got to work with.
Sharon Stone.
Well, yeah,
Oh, and
sure.
uh,
Borgnine, Bernie Borgnine.
Ernest Borgnine, right?
Yeah, well, the Sharon Stone episode was funny because there was Sharon and the other gals, and they were just getting their career started. And I had brought my girlfriend from Texas, a Texas gal, beautiful, athletic blonde, who didn't really, wasn't too happy about these, as she put it, these stuck up hussies, you know. And I remember one day it was Sharon and two of the other gals, and they're looking at me and they're going, "Oh, this is your girlfriend. She's so pretty. I can't open this water. Could you open it for me?" And I just grabbed it and I go, I felt the claws of my girlfriend on my leg, and I just go, hmm. It might have been Sharon. I'm not sure. It might have been. And I just go, well, you have to snap it like you're wringing the neck of a rabbit or something. And they went, oh, and off they went. So they were basically all troublemakers, you know. And then I remember going back on a Sunday. I'm supposed to fly back that night to work on Monday, and my girlfriend says, if you don't quit acting and just get a regular job and live in Texas with me, which is no way I could do that, I'd die in the heat. And she was charming and beautiful, but just couldn't handle being around movie people. I said, they're not all like that, you know. And anyway, it didn't work out. But I remember calling Wes about just before I had just enough time to catch the last flight. And he goes, Michael, do you know what time it is? I go, yeah, it's late, but I need you to control your actresses because my girlfriend's upset, and if she gets mad, she'll deck them. I mean, this gal is a rodeo gal. I mean, and he goes, oh Christ, I have no control over these women. Are you kidding me? I'm just lucky that they're not fighting each other because they're all, you know, to one another. And I go, okay. So I sadly told my girlfriend, and she tore up all our letters that we ever read and had sent to each other. Said, well, we're done. And then I went very so happy to go back to work on Blessings, but it was a good role, and so we've had a lot of things to deal with, Wes and I, and just a wonderful, wonderful gentleman.
That's it's really awesome to hear. You know, I mean, because when I heard that he passed, I mean, it was a major like detrimental blow to my fandom in a sense because like again, you know, Carpenter and Craven were the biggest inspirations on my own writing, and to me, when I heard that Wes passed, it was like a sense of like my childhood dying, and it was like no, no, you know, no, there's still so much more, you know, he has to give, you know, there's so much more, you know, that this guy has, it's too soon, it's too soon. And it was just a major blow, and I was definitely, you know, somewhat depressed for a few days, you know, almost a week, because it was like that much of, you know, my childhood just, you know, I'm like it's over, you know, that's a sign that that part of your, you know, growing up watching these movies, this guy continuing to make movies, was, it was over. But you know, you can, the great thing about movies and film is that you can go back and rewatch, you know, movies and TV shows and stuff that directors and actors and everybody involved in the film and entertainment industry has worked on that are long gone, but yet, you know, they're contributions to the film community and movies in general, remains in timeless classics like The Hills Have Eyes, like The Hills Have Eyes Part Two. I just did an interview with Sean Whalen, who got to work with Wes on The People Under the Stairs,
Mm-hmm.
and he said had nothing but the same things you had to say about Wes, which is just so great to hear because again, Wes was such an awesome filmmaker, and I mean it was awesome to see movies like Nightmare on Elm Street and Shocker and The Hills Have Eyes, and like you said, to hear in these intense situations he could write in humor, and
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things I loved about the late 70s, 80s, and 90s horror movies, because you had with filmmakers like Wes and Carpenter, and even Clive Barker. There was intense situations, but there was like a relief from the tension in those situations by throwing in a little humor that was unexpected. And,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I try and strive for in my own work, which
I think
is,
it's a good balance. I also like Serpent in the Rainbow.
oh, yeah,
That was
Surfing the Rainbow is
that
great.
really has some great texture to it. His use of camera, like when the guy is under the influence and he's kind of stumbling through town, but it really visually looked like a dreamscape. Of course, his body movement, of course, helped, and the people that pop in and out of the scenes, and you make you wonder, is this a dream? And I mean, it really drew you into the experience. That's just good. It's just really good filmmaking. One of my biggest complaints about more recent quote horror films is the category that I'm not squeamish or saying anybody should or should not make certain films. I love special effects. I remember one time I was working on a film with Andrew Getty, who passed away, and Storyteller is getting ready to come out. We did it 10 years ago. I want to see the finally completed with score at the Idaho Film Festival, the 13th to the 15th of October in Idaho. I remember Andrew talking to the special effects guy, and he's trying to get this very intricate effect on it. He goes, "Oh, Tom Savini it," which is kind of fun because over a period of 40-something years, all these are all my friends from Pinhead to Chop Top, everybody, and Kane Hodder's. Um, I remember we did a movie together called Ed Gein, the Butcher of Plainsfield, and we were working this one night, and I'm his buddy. We're going to dispose of a body, and I call him to task, and I'm like, these bodies and stuff. This is we do the whole scene. He kills me with a shovel, but while we're getting ready to roll camera and drive the truck, we were just like two giggly kids going, "Wow, this is so mission! We get to do a dramatic scene, together for the first time." And then of course there's Death House, which is coming out. Director Harrison is we're pushing that real heavy. So again, we've all worked together, and we all have. Most of us have experienced and appreciated Wes and um, all of the other Carpenter, for instance. I mean, I love Escape from New York and L.A. It's just fun. It's not necessarily horror, but it's a great roller coaster ride. It all fits. I'm not a big fan of my original thought of splatter, just for splatter's sake, because if you lose the humanity in the characters, then the consequences to the actions don't make any sense, and they just lose all validity. And that's a big peeve of mine. I see a lot of films at festivals and conventions, and people give them to me, and most of them are like, I'll scan quickly through them and going, oh, okay, they'll get there someday, and I usually hand them out to other people, other fans at the show. But you have to have a good story, and you have to have characters and consequences, and pose the moral dilemmas that I think make storytelling and writing worthwhile. I got to meet Rod Serling one night when I was in high school. He was just getting ready to do. He had just finished taping a night gallery, and nobody's heard about it yet. And so we would get ice cream about 10 o'clock at night, and there he was, just him and my brother and I. My brother goes, "Doo, doo, 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 doo," and he just runs out of the room. And he thinks, "Oh my God, these guys are crazy." And I go, "No, no, no." I was really nervous. I was young, and I go, "Mr. Sterling, please don't drive away. I just want to say thank you." And he goes, "For what?" I go, "Your brain." And he goes, "Oh Christ, start the car to his driver." And I go, "No, no, I was just a little nervous." And he goes, "Take a breath, dude." And he lights a cigarette and he puts his foot on the bumper of the car and he goes, what are you trying to say?" And I go, "Well, you tell good stories." He lights up another cigarette and he goes, "Oh, no, which ones do you really like?" I said, "Well, I like them all, but the henpecked husband like to read books, worked in the bank and the bomb and this and that." And I mean, I think about 20 minutes later, we were like buddies, because we were sharing experiences of storytelling, and that's what we do.
I'm in complete agreement with. By the way, that is an awesome story. They actually teach us at Point Park. If you want to look at some of the best examples of storytelling in a half-hour time frame,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Twilight
yeah,
Zone. Um,
exactly.
I'm a huge fan of Rod Sterling. The Twilight Zone still holds up to this day
Oh, yeah, during
as
the holidays they have the marathons, and
right.
there are people that poo-poo Star Trek. Well, not everyone is a gem, but the bottom line is thank you, Roddenberry, and thank you, certainly, because it's just Outer Limits was a lot of fun, but he really had his finger on the pulse of humanity and why, um, and showed us how powerful storytelling can be while it entertains and it's not preachy. That's the thing that I really find is brilliant. You're not preachy, but you can get a really layered message. I mean, some people just want the icing, and some people get down to the inner core of the cake, so to speak, and that's all fine. Sometimes I'll watch a movie that might be deep and just for a lighter reason, and just a more superficial experience, and sometimes well, I really need to sink into this, and like well, two of my all-time favorite movies is Matinee, Joe Dante's film with John Goodman, gives me the homage to that era. And I've heard that across the country in different places, the little marquee theaters coming back. As a matter of fact, when it came time for Anchor Bay to do The Hills Have Eyes on DVD, the film had deteriorated. I have heard that it can be baked and processed to preserve it. They put the word out, where can we? Does anybody have a 16 millimeter? And somebody in Kansas in a drive-in underneath the screen where they had some film cans that just happened to be well preserved. And Wes and Peter put somebody on a plane immediately when we picked it up. Otherwise, it would never be on DVD.
Right. Well, I actually pre-ordered my Scream Factory edition of the original Hell's Have Eyes on Blu-ray.
Nice.
So they are I guess releasing a restored
Oh yeah,
version of
yeah.
that.
They've been all restored, but if they hadn't have found that film can, we would have been
Right.
screwed. But yeah, I remember we were in Detroit, and we were promoting the film, going around the country. But we did about 6 different spots, and had me dress up like Pluto, and kind of scare people, whatever. And there was a young teenage boy with his mom watching the movie, and when they said "kill the baby," the mother goes to grab the kid, take him out of the movie theater, and she goes, "This movie is sick and depraved." Now I'm dressed like Pluto, and I lean behind her, and I go, "You're damn right, lady." And she sees me, and she freaks out. So I tell the boy, I says, "Stay here, I'll go deal with your mom." So we do the pacing back and forth in the lobby while she's totally upset, and you know, totally having a tough time. And she goes, "Why do you make movies like this?" And da da da. I go, "Oh, to scare people like you, haha." And then I realized after a while she was really affected. I sat her down. I said, "Let's have a cup of coffee or soda, whatever." And I go, "Well, look," I says, "I'm so sorry this movie really affected you." And then she explained why, something else had happened that touched a nerve. And I go, "Well," I says, "these movies aren't. they're not so bloody and gory and stuff. They're not hideous like Last House, for instance. I says what it's about is it'll shut off all your synapses in your brain of all the stuff that bugs you day to day, the news, the this, the that, and whatever's going on. But you survive it. Like the bad guy doesn't always win. The good guys win. The bad guy gets their desserts. Their just rewards. That's the whole idea of a heroic tale. You rise to the occasion, and if you don't have a good villain, then your hero is diminished to some degree. So she kind of got it, and I said, and then the son came out, and he says, "Man, the movie rocked." And at the end, I says, "Then what happened at the end?" He says, "Oh, you guys get wasted." And I go, "Yeah, everyone survives." So and then you appreciate those things that are important. And when you get home, you lock the doors and you leave a hall light on.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, one of the things I
And you
just
get out of
wanted
bed
to
and you jump at least 5 feet so the hands under the bed don't
right.
grab you.
I did want to just back up real quick and
Mhm.
just put my 2 bits in about something you said earlier about when it's not so much about the shock factor, it's about the storytelling.
That's
And
right.
I'm like in complete agreement with you on that, because I feel like horror movies today, or at least where we've gone from like the 2000s somewhat up until now,
Mhm.
it's become more about the shock factor and not so much the storytelling. And going back to A Nightmare on Elm Street, another Wes Craven classic. The reason you had those movies go on to make, um, like what was it, 7 official Nightmare on Elm Street movies plus Freddy
Mhm.
versus Jason, which is like
Mhm.
8.
Mhm.
And the reason they were as successful as they were, even though Wes only did the first, wrote the third, and wrote and directed New Nightmare, which is actually my favorite. Um, the reason people kept coming to go see Freddy was because Freddy was a character in himself, and Nancy was a character in herself, and all the characters that went up against Freddy that weren't Nancy, and all the other entries into that series, there was a story going on that was more than just the gore effects of the Freddy kills. Yes, people
Yeah.
went to see the Freddy kills, because they were freaking awesome. But when it really comes down to it, it's about the underlying story that's going on around all that. That is really what made people keep coming back to go see those movies. It's the same thing with Jason and Myers. They didn't say a word, but yet people found those characters interesting because of the underlying story that was going on around all those entries into those series. And
Right.
one thing that I definitely want to try and bring back is, yes, we can have lots of gore, we can have lots of violence, but you have to have a reason behind it. You have to have a story going on that somehow, by the end of the film, you understand why you've seen this intense violence or rape or, domestic, you know, abuse and or whatever it is in a thriller, a horror movie, sci-fi movie. The point of going to see a movie is to be entertained with the story and the characters, not so much the shock factor. And
I agree.
it's just good to hear that someone who's acted in as many of those cult films as you have that outlook and opinion, and I think
Well,
that's really valid and great.
I concur. That's that's how my mental evolution and ethics. That's it. I do like that word a lot, anti-E word, because I think what happens is, well, I used to read a lot of science fiction and futuristic stories. The Machine Stops, the H.G. Wells short story is brilliant. But even the Matrix, like the Matrix, there's a lot of elements in the Matrix I really, really like, but I think it just is just too much chasing and killing and fighting. I mean, they really drug it out way too much. But in the first one, when he realizes, when Cypher says, what, red pill, blue pill, do you really want to make this choice? Those to me were the more intriguing elements. And if you have something that is not story driven and character driven and consequence driven, like you expressed, then you have a video game. And then if you have the same approach to a film that's violent or has a lot of splatter, it turns into torture porn. I mean, there are a lot of films that I've seen that are just purient, and I go, oh, Jesus, really, come on, but to each their own. I'm just glad we live in a country so far where we can still express ourselves. But I remember I was on a panel, and one of the discussions was about, do you think Congress should pass laws to if somebody sees a horror movie and then they copycat, should those actors and producers be held liable? And that was whoa, the big censorship question. So I mean, it does create a discourse, and I think an honest discourse about whatever subjects is a healthy thing. But that would be way too oppressive. I mean, when I was early in college, and even when I was in high school, I joined an organization called the Fellowship of Reconciliation. It's one of the oldest peace organizations on the planet, and some of the concepts I think are also parallel in film, of course. I was amazed how people would be upset about horror films when on any given day, especially during the Vietnam era and other eras, or even today, I can turn on the news and see horrible pain and suffering 24/7. And one of the things that made, I had a friend, I still my friend, David Sheldon. He wanted to do, in mid to late 80s, I helped him do a few pitches at some studios with producers about his concept for a cable TV news station called the Global News Network. I mean, he had the brochures and pamphlets and all kinds of information. And I remember one of these producers just leaned back in his chair and he goes, "What kind of Pollyanna, Little House on the Prairie, Michael Landon crap is this? Nobody would want to see that. We want to see explosions and blood and guts and this and that and that." And I looked at him and I just, David, we knew that they weren't going to, promote or invest. And I just said, "Really? That's your reaction to this pitch?" And I asked him straight up. I said, "Well, have you ever met Michael Landon?" "Well, no." "All right." I says, "Have you ever been to a convention?" "No." I said, "Well, I do. I do 6 to 10 a year. I meet hands-on, possibly, I don't know, honestly, anywhere between 5,000 and 8,000 people face-to-face. And every time I mention this pitch for this type of a program, not a single person says they wouldn't have it on 24/7. Not a single one. So there's a disconnect, when you're making a story just for money, it's like, I see it as almost a moral issue, It's like pharmaceutical companies. It used to be a federal law. You could not advertise prescription medicines on TV. And then it became, well, we have to have a pill for everything. Well, not all of those pills are healthy or good for you. So it just turned into greed and, you know, what's the easiest way to go as opposed to, you know, you would think that a product that had value would need advertising almost, you know. And I think the same goes for film entertainment and music. Like, I have friends that I don't want to say rap is bad or anything, but you know, I'm sorry, but torture porn bad. Uh, you know, songs that enhance violence toward women or to anybody bad. I'm not saying you don't have the right to do it because when you're kind of judged by the menu you invite in your life, you're kind of judged by who you hang with. And so yeah, you are part of the fabric of those you know, guilty by association, perhaps. Maybe there's a better term for that, but yes, you see, it's like people in a crowd, and then there's a dog fight going on. I've worked with people like Brandon Bonds and other people that you know try to get the word out of certain bully breeds like pits, for instance. You know, they can be lovely. We had a wonderful one, but people do hideous, horrible things. And those that stand on the sidelines, if you're not part of the solution, then you know what? You're part of the problem. Especially if you're bearing witness to it and you do nothing. You know, shame on you, you see.
Right.
So if you have entertainment or activities that, like bullfighting, horrible. Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, I would never go to one if I'm flipping channels or looking on the internet. And, you know, there's a story on a bullfighter got killed by bull. Too fucking bad. Excuse me. I said,
Right.
too
Right.
damn
I'm in
bad.
agreement.
I have no mercy. I was in Italy doing a movie with Raquel Deodato, and we were in Rome, and one of our actresses was called the Barbarians, and her name was Sheba. She's a very famous model, but she would not do furs. I really kind of fell in love with her over that. And anyway, there was a fur shop, and so they invited her in because she was so beautiful and famous. They didn't know she wouldn't. She refused to do furs. And I went in there with her, and I just spent 10 years of my life at a wolf sanctuary. Two of our wolves were reintroduced in Yellowstone, but so here I am. Going, oh God, it was just hideous, and so I had her interpret for me, and this older woman, a very wealthy, with a Bentley parked outside, was hugging and caressing this mink or this fur thing around her, and it just was making me ill. And so I had her interpret in Italian. I go, "Can you feel it scream?" And the guy's pushing the button for the cops. He's locking the door, and I'm causing grief. I'm, stop a sale. And this is all blood sport. They skin them while they're alive. You know that. So I hope if you buy this, just every time you put it on, I hope you can feel the pain and of the flesh being pulled off, and they're still alive. Then I explained why it happens physiologically. And she was freaking out, and the guy wouldn't open the door, so I actually kicked the door open, and we ran across the street. It's like my European vacation movie, and we ran across the Villa Borghese and, hid amongst some people while we heard the the cops, and
Right.
nothing happened. But I mean, you can't just sit on the sideline. And the same thing goes for storytelling. Some stories need to be told. Sometimes they're difficult to deal with, but the underlying message is very, very important.
Right.
And Wes knew that, and most of our best writers knew that. So, so there's a lot of weak stuff out there, but that's okay. The cream rises to the top.
I could not have said it better myself.
Well, maybe if you sat down after a couple of days, maybe.
Right.
I'm just
I'll do me as a screenwriter. I'll do a few rewrites.
Yeah, right.
Because as a screenwriter say, writing is not writing; it's rewriting.
Oh, absolutely true. Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Well,
Well, I guess you could write a hit song in 5 minutes if you're lucky, but.
Right.
Oh, for instance, a friend of mine who knew Arthur Lee of the band, was it Love? Well, yeah, that was Arthur Lee. And then he probably did some other single stuff. He wrote a song called Stephanie Who Knows. Well, I happen to know who Stephanie was. I met her and actually almost and dated her for a bit in college. And boy, his description of her was perfect. It was exactly how she was. You know, but art imitates life and vice versa. Um,
Exactly. Exactly. Well, we are almost at 50 minutes here, and this
all right.
conversation has been amazing. I have, we got a lot out of the way just by you mentioning various stuff, people you've worked with. I have a huge list here that we're definitely not going to get to today.
Well,
Um,
grab one or two gems and we could tidy up with that.
All right. Well, I'll just finish with this last one. Actually, these last two. What are these last
Okay.
two, and then we can get to the rest at a future point. Second
Okay.
Michael Berryman interview. Um,
Uh,
the last two I want to talk about is one, the Guyver, and
yes.
getting to work with Brian Usna and that whole team, and the last is the Devil's Rejects and Lords of Salem,
Okay.
getting to work with Roz on that.
Guyver was really amazing. Steve Wang and Screaming Mad George, some of the best prosthetics I've ever seen in my life. As a matter of fact, at the convention or at Monster Palooza last weekend, Spice Williams, my girlfriend, the redhead in there, happened to pop in and say hi, and we had a nice connection. Um, um, it was such a delightful film. As a matter of fact, I had a full page ad from the LA Times with the Hills Have Eyes poster. In the lower right corner was a little box that said, "In a galaxy far, far away." So I kind of became pretty good friends with Mark Hamill during the filming. And I said, "Hey, Mark, look at this." He goes, "Oh, wow, there's it's a poster." I go, "Yeah, it's my first one." And so I said, "This little galaxy far, far away little thing, is that thing going to take off?" I just wondered. He had a good laugh, and I autographed it for him. So, well, here you go. I hope your career takes off after people see the Guyver. And it was he just had we had a really good time. There was a scene in the van where Spice goes, you never take me anywhere, and I go, well, yeah, you're right. After we do this Guyver thing, we'll take a vacation. And she goes, really? And I go, sure. Brazil, and she goes, will you take me shopping? And now that was Brian Usna and George saying, here's, you guys make up the scene. You put in the dialogue. You're in the band. It's a moment. Well, the Zonards are doing that thing. And you guys create your experience. You create a backstory to your characters. And so that's what we came up with. Well, Brian was always a lot of fun to work with. And um, that's a really fun. It's a real, just a fun, enjoyable movie. And Jimmy Watt, JJ was a hoot. Got along well with everybody. Um, and then Rejects. I think I haven't seen Halloween or the others, but from what I've seen of Roz movies, that's my favorite. Peck and Paw Finish. Got to work with all my buddies. Um, it was just well put together. Lords of Salem, we lost 3 pages of script, and it was a disaster in my opinion. But Rejects it's solid. It's solid, and yes, I like chickens, but not in that way. That was a crazy ass scene because the guy was a stand-up comedian, hillbilly comedian from the South, and he was so happy to have the camera on him, he just wouldn't shut up. So Ken Forey and I were standing there, and we're just waiting for him to stop going off script. I saw Rob; he was like kind of smiling and nodding his head like continue, and off at the monitor. And so when he finally shut up, I said, "Well, I'll just have to react." So I reacted in kind, and it played out well. But when they yelled cut, I took the guy aside. I said, "Hey, man, uh, it's going to play in this movie, and this scene's going to work okay, but if you really want to be an actor and work in film down the line, you might want to stick to your script and dialogue because every second adds up over time, and then you have to edit and throw stuff out. So I was mad at him. I said, I think you're being a little selfish here, but the movie itself is it's really well crafted. I like it.
I have to
Uh,
agree with you. I think The Devil's Rejects is probably Rob's greatest achievement next to El Super Bisto, his animated movie that kind of
yeah,
follows this.
I have not seen Super Beast.
Super Bisto, like I would say The Devil's Rejects is probably his like greatest live action horror film.
Mm-hmm.
I have to check out 31 to see what that's like, but
Yeah, I haven't seen that either.
yeah, I'm excited to check that out because I love Malcolm McDowell ever since
Oh,
Clockwork.
I worked with Malcolm. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
like Malcolm a lot. Yeah, yeah,
I would
him and Doug Bradley would be a great buddy cop team.
right, right.
Yeah, Malcolm's
Alex and
awesome.
Pinhead.
Yeah.
But
Well, even none of those characters, but those two actors were good friends, and I know Doug more than I know Matt. I've spent more time with him than Malcolm, but both very great chaps. Just no attitude, no bullshit, no ego, just good guys.
yeah, I've actually met I've met Doug um, 4 times now, and the last time was actually this past Pittsburgh's Steel City Con, where some more of your friends were at. Bill Mosley and Sid Haig were
Yeah.
both there, and I'm actually in the process of talking to Judy to get them on the show as well.
Oh,
Um,
you should. Yeah, be good. Be
I
good.
am a huge fan of both Bill and Sid, and Bill is I've been following him since he played Chop Top in Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part Two, which
Bill's awesome. We always anytime we're traveling on location or doing a show, we can always find each other early in the morning going on a nature hike. We always have fun. Matter of fact, we were
awesome.
in England doing Shed of the Dead, and we kind of got uh, kind of got lost and we weren't quite sure which street to take. So there were some guys with a cherry picker, a little the box on a crane thing, and and so we just stopped and they recognized us and we took some pictures and Bill goes, "Hey, we're trying to find where our little hotel thing is." And the guy goes, "Oh, here, hop in the bucket." Well, and they craned him up and looked around. Oh, over there. Oh, and then you want to take this street. So we always have an adventure. He used to write for I think Scientific American magazine. He's a pretty smart guy.
Yeah,
I think he
I've
went to Princeton or Yale. I think it was Yale. It was one of the two. But for you never know. Can't judge a book by its cover. A wacky, crazy person could be. Well, it's like in Doc Hollywood, where the gal goes, like an onion peel a layer. You could be surprised.
right.
That's also one of my favorite movies.
Well, I think that's a good place to stop because my closing question that I like to ask my guests is, what are some of your favorite films, and if you have any upcoming projects you wanted to promote.
The upcoming projects, Andrew Getty's Storyteller. He passed away a year ago. It's 10 years in post. It's completed. It's brilliant. We're looking for distribution right now. Sean Patrick Flannery and Dina Myers, myself, I am the title role. I'm the cadaver. I bring nightmares to Fred Kohler, Dennis. Then there's Death House that's being released now. And Jesse Burke, my doctor friend from Arkansas, we did a little short. You can find it on the internet. It's called One Please. It's a silent short, brilliance, won all kinds of awards, and it will. His second one, called Cured, will be at the Idaho Film Festival, 13th through the 15th of October. Let me see what else. Those are the projects. Purgatory Road, I think we're going to be rolling film on that in November. Very, very interesting script. And my favorite films, well, I love the original Crow because it brings back memories. Blade Runner, of course. Matinee, Doc Hollywood, Just for Fun. Those are just great. And there's so many others. Oh gosh, even bad ones like They Live with Roddy Piper.
Oh, that's not a bad movie. That's a great movie.
That's a great
We've
movie.
come
And
here
of
to
course,
chew bubblegum and kick ass, and we're
Escape
all
from
out of
L.A.,
bubblegum.
Carpenter stuff, Escape from L.A., Escape from New York. I mean, uh, Briskin.
Pliskin,
Yeah,
Snake Plissken.
yeah,
I love
yeah.
those movies so much that I'm actually I have in the works a what I like to the working title is Snake Plissken, and it's going to be a follow up to L.A. And I have the whole, that he's going to
Just
go
your
to
fun.
L.A. He's going to go to New York. He's been hiding
Right,
out in
right.
Alaska. It's
Yeah,
it's my fan fiction movie.
yeah. And then if I want to get just kind of there's always playing the well there's always Emerald Forest. I mean, excellent film based on a true story. The dam did break. Um, oh gosh, there's so many good stories out there. But you know, on a weekend if it's rainy, I put all those on and have a good time.
Awesome.
Well, I've
Who
totally enjoyed
wouldn't?
our conversation. I'm gonna head to town and see what's cooking here. And thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. We'll have to do a part two when we can dial it in. And I hope Judy can
Absolutely.
get the other guys lined up for you because I think they'll have a really good time.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Michael. It's been
Well,
great having you swim in the bowl.
anytime. Change that water.
Next interview, clean water.
Okay. Awesome. Take care.
You too. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.